Right? Let's learn how to automate the things to make our lives easier. Kind of makes it smart homesteading.
It helps to have audio. So I've got a lot of props, and I'll be bouncing out of the live stream also, so that you may not see all of that. You can see it on the screen behind me, but there's going to be a lot of different things going on. I have a home assistant device on the table up here, running on a Raspberry Pi, and a bunch of other things that we can show through the automation. I was going to try to do kind of a day in the life, walk in and have things start doing stuff, but having to re-IP everything for the network kind of just threw that into a lurch. But Jarvis, turn on lamp.
Turn the lamp on.
So really easy stuff, right? But this is all, I like doing the offline stuff, right? I don't like personally the online stuff. Like David's into a lot of the alternative named devices that go out into the cloud. I really prefer to have these. So these are all open source and as offline as possible. So Jarvis, turn off lamp.
Turn workshop plug off.
Doesn't always, grab everything right. Jarvis, set lamp green.
Change the lamp to the color green.
We also have devices that do like a door presence. So if I put this on the door, I have an automation run that turns the light to red, and if the door closes, it turns it to green. So it gives me some awareness of my environment. So it would be a good cue for me that something else is going on. You could use any kind of trigger for it, right? So it could be whatever. It could be your email. I got an email from my boss. The light turns red. It could be a lot of different things. But if I exit out of here, hopefully it's not going to screw up. So this is the Home Assistant console, right? And it was kind of cool when I brought it up on the network, because it does discover quite a bit of things automatically. So it is they've gone a long way towards making it easier to configure out of the box, but it is something that you're going to have a little computer skills to set up. This is not the only kind of way of doing home automation, obviously, but it is kind of the open garden, easy to integrate all the old devices that you had if you're a computer geek like me, or bring in a lot of disparate devices and have them all show up. So this was joining Jack's network here. Just the things that pulled in that are smart devices, that home assistants. I just thought that was pretty cool. Basically. And then these down here are the integrations I had already loaded up into this. So I was free open source software, and use community-driven plugins and add-ons and integrations to set all this up for free. I had the Pi personally myself sitting on my table, so it was pretty easy to throw it all together. What got me into this? I have a solar setup on my off-grid dome home, and I wanted to get that data in a way that I didn't have to go log in all the time and go to click on another button and get the screen up and then finally see the battery percentage and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to be able to say, all right, put up a screen somewhere in the house and have my battery percentage and my my solar performance and that stuff all in one place where I can just glance at it and get it. So that's what brought me into doing this, and then I kind of snowballed out of there with the smart plugs and the lights. I bought the lights really more for the demo. I always thought the different color lights were kind of gimmicky, but it's been a lot of fun playing with them. These lights by TP-Link, but they're individually Wi-Fi enabled in the light themselves. So there's nothing else you have to do. I had my wife give me some lamp holders or lamp bases from like Goodwill or wherever she bought them from, just so that I had something to put on the table. That's why they're all kind of different looking. But yeah, it's just real easy plug and play existing infrastructure to set up your smart lights. And they don't have to be activated by a switch. You can have a smart switch device that would replace the wall, right? You can just leave them on, and then Jarvis, turn off lamp. You know, and it doesn't have to be voice control. There's all the buttons that are inside the console as well, and there are apps that can be on your phone, Android, iOS, tablet, whatever. So you could have a tablet on the wall. I've seen this a lot. I learned about this in YouTube videos, basically. But I've seen a lot of the YouTube videos where they've got it just literally a tablet on the wall plugged in behind it, and then they leave up a screen similar to this. You can complete everything you're seeing on this screen. So this is the way I set it up, but you can definitely just make it look however you want to. So like I've got a camera control set up here. So this exposes some of its data to me. But I also have the app on my phone. So if you hit the doorbell, buddy. So it rings me on my phone that doorbell went off, but that one actually goes through the cloud. So if I'm away from home, the doorbell goes off, I can answer it from my phone basically anywhere. But the data itself, the video that it's storing, is on the doorbell cam. It's not in the cloud. Of security risk to me, but having that ability to have it available outside the house is pretty cool. This can be a challenge of having like 10 more apps on your phone because you've bought different brands of stuff. But if you're trying to do it a little cheaper, or I'm a tech geek, so I like to have exactly the function that I want to have based on the device rather than a brand lock-in. And it was pretty cool, Jack, when I plugged in the Home Assistant, it auto-discovered a lot of the stuff. You weren't here for this. But it's really helpful. I mean, and
rat out the people using the network that are supposed to.
I could do that. It auto exposed these, but then they're also, these plugins were already in here, right? I didn't have to go download these to set them up. These were kind of preloaded. And then if I click on configure, I can start to bring them into Home Assistant and do triggered actions or make different consoles and stuff and show that and control them. Come on. And then, so I've got things like a smart water time, which I was able to just have an integration that pulls that in, and I can kick off. Thank you. I could kick off the pre-programmed timer actions for it. So like sprinkle every other day or whatever it is, or I can just turn it on and off within Home Assistant, or I can write an automation to say, you know, water at 10 seconds an hour every hour. And then if it's outside, maybe you know, monitor the rain. So this plugin here is showing online sourced open source forecast. So I could take that data and say, all right, let's water today. And then if it's going to rain, skip it. So I want to pull my presentation back up. Thank you, Hatch. So this is what I paid for most of it. You're not locked into using any of this stuff. This is just what I have laying around here to show. You can definitely spend a lot of money doing this, but it doesn't have in your house already. You probably want to have a cheaper device to be the brains of this, or a low power device be the brains of this, because you're going to leave it on all the time, right? So the power usage, you know, you don't want to have a big server blowing away your electrical bill every week. So having a small device like this Raspberry Pi uses 10 watts literally, and it's just it's a little headless box that's sitting down here. And then these other sensors and things were just things I bought for this, but I'm going to integrate them back into my just this demo system. It's pretty fun stuff. And it was a really good learning experience because I wouldn't normally do this exactly this way for my house, right? It was just something I could bring along and show, and I learned a lot, and a lot of what I wanted and not wanted. For example, this device is the doorbell sensor. I mean, the door sensor. It actually has to talk to the internet just for one thing, but it won't function without it. So it turns my light red, right? And I can change that into the automation. But if I lose internet, I lose this sensor. Whereas the lights and stuff, those will all work without the internet being connected to my home network. Home Assistant isn't the only option, obviously, for this kind of like offline home-hosted automation. Habitat, OpenHab are two of the more popular ones for that. But you've got your Google and your Amazon versions also that are cloud-based, that are to be in. But it's not for me, and I wanted to have the free and community-sourced integrations to be able to pull in for this. It's also a really good idea to look into, if you're starting from scratch, look into the version like Home Assistant you want to use, and look at, if you want everything to be offline, like check the hardware, make sure all of the hardware is in the integration. You can get the Home Assistant piece of it that's offline, but also that the hard and doesn't cause problems like that. So it's free, open source. This is actually pictures. I guess it's not very bright. Pictures of my home setup. I've got my cameras exposed on my home one, so I can see everything at a glance. But again, you can totally customize those cards. So if you don't want to see the temperature graphs, I like seeing my different temperature sensors I've got exposed between my different buildings. I like seeing all these graphs and stuff, and my wife's like, I just want the number. Show me the number for the temperature. Show me the number for the dome, the humidity, that kind of stuff. But I like being able to compare it and see what up in the top right there's a bunch of the plugins and things that are just built in. There's like 2,200 integrations pre-canned, so you don't have to do any coding to bring those in. There's somebody else already did that work and uploaded it. And then there's always like a GitHub entry with all the different details about what that specific developer did for it. So it's pretty easy setup. It auto discovers a lot of the different devices, the common devices that are on your network. You do have to have some sort of home network. So it's not something that you would just plug in this one device and then have your you have to have a home network to host it, but most of us do, right? Because you had an ISP, you got the internet, so everybody has pretty much that. And then the automations really start to get into the closest part to coding that's in this, but it's just like a logic tree, right? I have an action that I want to do. What's the trigger, right? So the trigger is this sensor is open. So now what? There's conditions I can meet. So if it's at night or when at my sleep time, maybe I don't want that light to be on. So that could be a condition. Or it's daytime and I just don't want a light on all the time. Leave it off. And then the actual, so trigger, condition, and then action. So do what? Turn on a light. Change the color to red. Change the brightness. And then when it closes, go back to green. As far as hosting it on the hardware, there's a boatload of options. They do have a all-in, go buy this board. It's the Home Assistant Yellow. They're actually on backlog because of the Raspberry Pi chip shortage. It's super hard to find that particular board just because it's not getting the chips from China and Taiwan as often as we would like to. But that board is purpose built for Home Assistant. It's got the different radios and things that people commonly use with a Home Assistant home automation setup. So Zigbee, Z-Wave, that kind of stuff, those radios are actually built into this board. But you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. You can run it on old computers that you've got laying around. Some of us have laying around. But you can also use a small form factor. So if you went out and bought one specifically for this, then you would be best served by having something that's fanless, solid state drive, and just something. You don't care about that hardware. It's just a head and a host for the rest of these features, right? You're not going to be looking at the screen. It's main display, its monitor, right? You don't care because you're going to access it through the website. And then I personally run it, so it has a good plugin for a home network attached storage. It's like a box of disks. Many of us geeks have a home network drive, and my Synology actually supports running this natively on the Synology. So I already have a box that's up on the shelf running all the time, and I run it on. And you can run it, of course, in any virtual environment on a machine. If you've got leave your laptop on or a home desktop on that runs virtual machine software, you can run it on there, of course, too. Privacy. This, it speaks to having cameras and stuff on your network and all these different Internet of Thing devices on your network. You're basically taking firmware and chips from China and putting them in your house. What could go wrong, right? So in an ideal world, you're going to have a separate network. It's going to be segregated, controlled, firewalled as tightly as you can. Well, if you've got a whole house with hundreds of devices, I found myself putting I think I've got 40 different devices now that are hooked into this thing at home. And I never would have that many IP addresses used up, that much network traffic going on. So I really had to kind of rethink how I was doing my network. But it is best practice to keep that locked down, run separate segments. And also consider, we were thinking about this with the live stream. I'm running a camera. That camera is streaming to whatever's looking at that view. I run 8 cameras at home, and that's quite a lot. So you want to make sure your network is good. You have preferably wired connections to those cameras. This doorbell cam is a Wi-Fi doorbell cam, but that's fine. But if you're running all of your cameras on Wi-Fi from one router, you might be hammering the bandwidth on that router. So suddenly your Linksys router access point drops offline for unknown reasons. Maybe you're saturating that connection. I also have a camera that I was really disappointed with because it's a solar powered camera. Great idea. It's all in one. It's got just a panel in the camera. There's no extra battery with this system because it's not streaming anything. It's motion activated because they're trying to optimize the camera for the battery life of it. So again, know the hardware you're trying to hook in. And I think it's important to use as many offline devices or internet independent devices as possible because they won't go down when the rest of the world goes down. David rather likes to have have the cloud listening, have a spy device listening. Remote access. So if you're going to connect in remotely to this device, which I mean, yeah, access to your cameras, notifications from your cameras, and alerts, right? So I can have alerts like the camera just saw somebody move and notified me here. I could then pull that up, take an active action on it, and say, okay, open the door, or set off an alarm in the house, or change the color of the light. But you can actually have an actionable thing that you could make it look like you were home, or that camera has the ability to do two-way audio. So I can answer the door, tell the Amazon guy to leave the package there, and he doesn't have to know. So there's some options for that are paid and or free. I like free, but the top one there, the Nabu Casa, that's just a holding company name for the Home Assistant project. That's their corporate front. But this all started open source anyway. All that does is gives you access to it remotely, and you're basically donating to the open source project. So it's if you're going to run it, it's a good thing probably to use that option, or maybe just pay for it because it's $5 a month. And so Cloudflare option, the VPN option, and port forwarding are the other options that are free completely. And there's different reasons why you would use all of those. I know not everybody's here is uber technical, so I won't dig into that, but those are some other free options that you can easily do. And that would let you, again, have your phone or your tablet or something be remote to the house and get access. I have to keep myself from buying cameras. I like being able to sit in my command chair at home, which I'm stuck in for work, like 10 hours a day, and have you know, I tease my wife that I'm spying on her and watching her do the yard work and stuff like that. But the awareness of you know, a car pulls in the driveway, or you know, the Amazon guy drops off the package and dropped it off at the light at the front of the driveway rather than bringing it in and putting it on the mail table. You know, I'm aware of where that went, and I can see it right off the bat. But so I have to like stop myself from buying more cameras. But so there's different options. But again, to hook into this stuff, you're going to want to have a streaming capable camera. You can spend a lot of money on these, but most of them are in the $50 to $200. Got a really cool one that's the bigger R2D2 looking one up on my tower, my internet tower. So I can 360 view all the way around my property and zoom in. It's got like an 18x zoom. I can actually go and look at what the neighbors are doing because you're hearing a weird tractor noise or something. Especially when it's wintertime and all the leaves are down, you can really see all around. But so there's just a ton of options there. And again, you know, you want to know what the device is. Look at your home automation tool, whether it's a cloud capable one or the home assistant or other options, just to make sure it's going to be compatible and to use the one that everybody's using so that you have easier integration and easier support for it. So security, the security of your home security, or not security of this setup, you can do a ton of stuff, right? I don't know how much I trust actually having a device to turn my doorknob or turn my my deadbolt, and having the batteries in there. So I can write an automation to tell me to look out for the batteries being out or dead. But how often do we see a battery go from like 25% to zero, like in a, I don't know how much I trust smart. Does anybody here use smart locks on their stuff? And do you have issues where you run out of battery on them? Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's your OCD. I mean, that makes sense. Jake, do you have?
We have a pivot system in my mother-in-law's house. I think that's probably maybe power.
Oh, it might be hooked in. Yeah. Most of the common ones I've seen are battery run, but yeah. Yeah, I would think. You can have a keypad. You know, to me, this question really is what does security mean to you, and how do you want to enter your home, and how do you want to be alerted and notified? So maybe you want to get a German Shepherd dog to alert you. You know, the nice analog way of being secure. Maybe you want to alarm keypad and motion sensing and different devices to proximity sense. So like if you're in the house, well, don't trigger on any motion inside the house. But if you leave, tell me when the cat moves. You know, I mean, like just anything of what's going on in your network, and all the extra sensors and stuff can really increase your security.
On the automated door locks, maybe they release a little before their time. Most of the ones I buy now are no longer able to be voice activated because people found out they could go to somebody's door and say, "Alexa, unlock front door."
Yeah. right? Well, and so yeah, so like on the voice automation stuff or voice recognition stuff, I like this one because it doesn't have everything pre-programmed, sentences that are pre-programmed. So you have to go in and tell it all of the different stuff you want it to do, rather than Alexa doing everything in your house.
Or geofence.
Yeah, geofenced.
You have to have your phone has to be within certain distance.
Or your Fitbit or your smartwatch or whatever. Motion sensors, so you can do presence with motion sensors, or maybe have your lights turn on with motion sensors. I don't like my lights turning on simply because something moved, because there's a lot of times I like being in the dark. I have pretty good night vision, and so just moving through my house, my wife has these little motion lights everywhere, lighting you up and hitting you in the face. I don't want my main lights in my house turning on that way either, but that's just my preference. Maybe you have an area of your house that you do want it to turn on as soon as you walk in the room, or you could have the automation kind of stuff turn on the red lights at night because you had the condition in the trigger and all that kind of stuff set up, versus turning on like the main blasting, bright white light. The home presence stuff was really interesting. So one of the geek components I bought is an open source hardware and software, right? So it's a completely open device, which means that people can develop for it without paying overhead for it, paying a company for it, and contribute to this idea, right? So these little devices have Bluetooth sensors, Wi-Fi sensors, temperature sensors. They can hook into a board and do GPIO. I'm speaking geek to David. So you can run solenoids off of them and stuff like that. They have a little, they have all the pins on the bottom, so you can plug them into a developer board, so you can have the screw down terminals and you don't have to solder it and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. And they're super cheap. So those things are $7 a piece. So you can, throw a bunch of those around the house and not get locked into sensors or temperature things or whatever. And then another thing that I'm going to do for the home and help me with my camera addiction is facial recognition. So there's a third-party software that I'm going to run that's, again, free, that will look at all my camera feeds, run them through a Coral AI USB stick, and figure out who's there. And if you don't recognize that person, alert me, notify me, jingle all the freaking devices in the house and tell me what's up. Really, yeah. Open all the dog crates, yeah. give them the command word to eat their face. Yeah. But if it's me walking through the house in the middle of the night, don't do anything, or open the door as I approach the door. I'll touch on it. And then homestead ideas. I was talking to Pocket Nick. I can't talk. And we were talking about how you could be using some of these sensors, like these Bluetooth low energy sensors or RFID sensors, with your animals. So sheep, knowing which the sheep pens are, or which paddocks the sheep are in, and counting the sheep, making sure that they all went over there. Having automated gates, maybe, week 1. So they're in that area. And then when they come back into the shared area, and then week 2, they go into the next paddock.
Gates and paddocks is very cute. You're right, though.
But I mean, that way what your animals are doing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Or your livestock guardian dogs, right? So having them tagged so that you can know how far away from these sensors they are, right? So they're roughly, between triangulation, they're over here in this sector of the homestead. So it would really help you keep an eye on where your LGDs are. And then actually having sensors on the gates around your homestead so that the driveway gate is open, and it shouldn't be. So I'm going to go look at my camera, or I'll get a notification to look at the camera because it's been open for 5 minutes.
How far away can these sensors be, and are they still on the Wi-Fi network? Or?
It depends.
Repeat the question.
Yeah. So how far away can the sensors be, and do they have to be on Wi-Fi? Yeah. Most of these, unless you're plugging them into another device, these particular sensors, yeah, they would be on Wi-Fi. But the small development board ones I'm talking about, they're $7 and they're super low energy. I think they draw like a watt. You can really run them on a battery. Yeah. So that would allow you to have these spread out across your homestead. I think the range on the Bluetooth piece is like 250 feet. So for, you know, a Wi-Fi kind of ish thing, that's pretty far. You know, you put them around your perimeter and it would let you know where everything is. And you can also use them to relay that information back to the main network.
On the distance, Jake, some of these different devices will set up a mesh network. They chain to each other.
Yeah.
And that can give you broader coverage throughout different facilities.
Right. Yeah. And I run an external antenna also. So on my internet tower, I've got an antenna blasting back to the rear of my property. And that thing will go, it's rated for like 5 kilometers. So it'll definitely cover. Anytime you hear a rating like that, especially if it sounds long, it's a line of sight max rating. So 5 kilometers is yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 36 miles. Yeah, no.
And the weather's perfect.
Yeah. And then back on the looking at all the cameras, this Frigate NVR system on the bottom line there, that is that open source software I'm going to look at. But Nick was saying that you could even use that to look at animals. Be like, don't notify me about my dogs, but you know, if the cow's over in this area where it's not supposed to be this part of the week, you know, scream at me, send me notifications. If all of the dogs, if you have a big pack of dogs running around, well, are those my dogs? Compare that to the Bluetooth collar they have on. It's not notifying me, but I'm going to use my setup to tell me when when there's, because I want to get those guys because they suck. But having that AI in that Frigate NVR software will let me do a lot of that kind of stuff. So not just, hey, is there a car in my driveway, or did some weird dude walk in, but what are these animals doing? There's a bunch of links in here. These are a lot of the YouTube channels I looked at and some of the Home Assistant links. But I also have devices up here, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'll show the automations I did too back in the console, so that you can see some of what that looks like, how I did the automation and stuff. But I'm going to pop back out and go to that. These slides, are these PDFs going to be available?
It's a great question. It would be easier for me to answer if Jack were in the room.
Fair.
I feel like if everybody fills out the contact, way to get it done though.
And
We could just upload our things to the LM group.
yeah,
That wouldn't be that hard.
that'd be easy. So again, these dashboards are all customizable. And then the automations are listed in here. And I've just been messing with this. I haven't done a boatload of them, but where's the door open closed is the one that changes the light. So those are the 2 triggers, right? And then the actions are choose between the 2 actions. So here, I'll expand all of these. So it's calling out the particular device, and then what is the triggered thing. So you can hit the drop down and change it. Those are the choices you have from that guy. And notice one of them is battery level changed. So I can trigger it and say, hey, if I get to 20%, send me a notification, or make the light purple or whatever. And then on this one, the action just was turn on the light, and its target is the particular light that I have here. The color, so I wanted to change it based on it being open. Open's bad, so make it red. And then the brightness value. So I wanted to change to make it really obvious. The red light's really bright, and then when it's green, it's dim. So it's just an example of the automation that I set up for that stuff. Just real easy, but it was something that was visually a good for the demonstration. But there's a bazillion options in here. Live in your own head how you want to see it work, but also how your family respond to these different cues. If it's just a light in my room, clearly that's only me getting notified. I can also have it talk out to the particular devices too, so I can ping specifically each device. I can tell it if only trigger the ones that are in the house, or if it's something important, then hit all the devices that are connected to all the endpoint devices that are connected to it.
I think that's the most important part.
Wait.
My opinion, that's one of the most important parts, and especially in home automation, which is overlooked, because the section he's looking at now, it's really easy to, or you tell me the door's open, but the conversation doesn't have to stop there. Example, I've been training my closet to talk to me for 3 years now. My wife is so jealous of my closet. So you walk in the closet in the morning, if it's between 4:30 and 6:30 in the morning, which is when I try to start the day, then the light comes on at the lumens. It says, "Good morning, Master Sigler." And I reply to it, and I'm like, kind of, or you can teach it multiple replies to what you say. So if it's at that time, then it'll instantly tell me what the weather is outside, because I haven't engaged the outside yet, and I don't. If I have my closet that looks at my schedule, it's my personal assistant in the morning. So if I'm scheduled to go to an office or meeting, it'll already tell me, what the traffic conditions are on the way. And it's interesting because you can give it a random number of replies back to you.
Yeah.
Which is how you actually teach it to talk. So it doesn't always tell you the same thing. So I'm like, hey, if I say this, then you can reply with these 20 different things.
Yeah.
And you can get it. You can slowly train it into conversation, but more importantly, you can train it into use so it starts knowing what your routines are. So there's a lot in automation. It doesn't have to be a open door, turn light on. Depending on that, you can keep going as far as what you want to and get it to set up multiple responses.
Yeah. You could go the other way with it too and say, computer, I'm getting up. Tell me the weather.
That's exactly it. You make it simple, and motion sensors, I think, are the most underutilized.
Yeah.
Because a motion sensor just saying that you're in this room or you're not in this room. If you're mad at your kids because they leave the bathroom light on, it's super easy to make it where if I see no movement in this room for up to 5 minutes, that light turns off. Now I never yell at my kid again for leaving a light on. It actually, depending on it, will play the Happy Taco song, or will Rickroll him if he leaves the light on. But it'll turn that light off, and that's all that I worry about.
Right.
Repeat
Actually,
the question.
Jake asked if my closet fixed my clothes out. It actually tells me which side of my closet to go to, what I might want to wear because of the weather, depending on what I put in there. If those are the RFID tags, which I put in. So yes, because
So if it's
I don't want to have to think in the
12:55,
morning.
You wear a full Carhartt suit. That's what it says.
Child workshop
Yeah, awesome point.
on.
You brought up some awesome points.
Thank you.
Especially on the not being just out there in the world.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know of any YouTube channels or websites that are focused on just the farm and ranch applications of this? Because I can think of about a billion ways this could make life easier.
Personally, no. I was focused on getting these things to work, but I really just didn't even go out and search for that. I was having with this. And then when Nick was over, we really started to talk about that, and it was like, mind blowing. But yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is, and we can look later to see if there are. But
Yeah, Nick has an idea for organizing his chest freezer. You know how you lose things in your chest freezer? By using Aldi bags, the fabric ones, and I think it's having RFID tags on there. So he can just scan it and know what's in that bag and have all the steak in this bag and all the ground beef in that bag. And a lot less of the digging and the dropping of the things, which I thought was pretty cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, inventory of your and out of the thing. You're not even having to like scan it, but you're within proximity of the sensor.
Something me and Tim were talking about a bit earlier, and Dr. Ken, kind of to your point, it's also really easy to find that somebody made an automatic chicken door that'll open when I want it to.
Yes.
Something I think that's very important to put in mind is everything in the world is on or off. The simplest automation that you can get is just an outlet that'll turn on and off. So if it's an electronic device that you want to do a thing, you don't have to buy a special device. All you need is an outlet that turns on and off, which is the cheapest, most basic piece of automation you can get. So if it's a off or a chicken coop you want open or close, if it's something that has
David.
an on or off switch, all it is in of its simplest form is an electrical outlet, and they are dirt cheap, and it's just on or off. So, and with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Spirko.
So, like, one of the applications I was thinking of where you can turn lights on and off in the house would be security during someone actually breaking into your house.
Yes.
If I'm turning lights on over there, well, I'm over there, except I'm not over there.
Yes.
And if I think
Distraction.
that person's in that room, I can also turn the light on the room he's in.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the dark. But when you were talking about like the livestock guardian dogs, with dogs' behavior, be aware you are dealing with a biological life form that has the capacity to learn on its own.
Right.
And so an example of automation in dogs, and the dog's using the automation to train you. I used to run the mirrors motion detectors at my property in Arlington. And we had a place where they kept breaching the fence. So I set up sector 4 where the fence breach was. So whenever the jerks would try to get out under the hole of the fence, we'd go outside and, hey, jerks, get in the house. About 5 times of that. And whenever they wanted to come in the house, they would run over there, trip the sensor, and when you open the door, they'd be. That particular one worked out, but if somebody's jumping on a 4-wheeler and running out to the back of a pasture, and every time I want to see the food god, I go over here and the food god comes. I'm just saying that could double back on you.
Ready for a question?
So back to Ken's question, I was going to ask it for him and for me. I want to run cheap, and I don't have 200. I don't know how many acres he has, but if you're way off past this, I know you can have like cameras with cell phone data. Can
Yes.
you also integrate those type of systems into this system and bring it under?
Can you? Yes. It's not going to be simple, but yeah, you can bring setup and different things like that that would basically put them on the same network, even though it's coming over 4G.
On the freezer question, there was mention yesterday, somebody mentioned a Y-on sensor. Do you have a recommendation for Yo-Link? What was it?
I don't personally, I don't run those. You can definitely have different sensors that would work both inside the freezer. You could have a smart freezer also. I don't know a lot about those. I haven't done any of that. Yeah. Yeah. But they make them specifically for not just temperature and stuff like that, but energy usage. You could have all-in-ones that have like a
Figure out a trigger for if the internet goes out,
yeah.
then you know to look at the thing or call people at your house to look at
Sure.
the thing.
Yeah. Right.
Because
I'm cheating. Two other questions.
You're good.
So
There's nobody behind you.
with Bluetooth is like, I don't know, 30 feet and it's out or something.
Yeah, Bluetooth Low Energy has an extended range, and some of these different sensors are allowed. They're registered to exceed that range as well, so that they go pretty far. It's like 200. BLE is more common. Bluetooth Low Energy. Our Bluetooth tags, different things like that. It's the newer Bluetooth.
hey, Hatch,
Technology.
what's the question from the live stream? Hatch,
Question from live stream.
question from the live stream. I started. I can't see it.
Sorry.
Does 0 tier work for remote access?
0 tier. I don't know what that is.
I'm familiar with that. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Crowdsourced answer says, I don't see why it wouldn't, but we are not certain one way or the other.
What is 0 tier, Brian?
It's
Brian, come here and say it in the mic, please.
So zero tier is sort of another way to think about a VPN. So you install apps on these things and they kind of find each other.
Sure.
So it's just
Similar to
a different way to do a VPN.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out for those of you who's really interested in home automation and hasn't done much, raise your hand. Okay, notice who's been giving you advice about home automation. Oh, so raise your hand if you know some stuff about this. JR? No?
You run it.
I do.
David? Who else? Brian? Tom? That means you don't have to do the rest of the day if you want to ask questions. There's a number of people we can talk to afterwards. Okay.
It can also get expensive.
Yeah.
I replaced my front door because I blew a hole in the front of it.
Yeah, and
Wait, David's asked me how I know story. Let's give it to us.
I hate me some salesmen. I really, really dislike them. And if they get through the motion detected sprinkler systems, which are in the front yard, which every once in a while they do, I hooked up a solenoid valve to a water spigot and throwed it down to a 1/4-inch piece of copper, which I bent around the corner, which aimed right in the middle of my door. And I in the backyard, but that thing was on for about an hour and it took all the finish and 2 windows out of my front door. Next step is the fully automatic BB gun.
Yes. Sentry gun.
I just have a question with regards to being off grid or in remote areas. So right now I'm on T-Mobile home internet, which is, like the wireless router, the 5G,
4G,
or 5G. You mentioned, it's taking a lot of bandwidth. Would you recommend having 2 different, one dedicated to this versus like if you remote work, or would it be able to, let's say you have 10, 15 or something like that. So I guess that's my question.
Personally, I'm an IT guy and I work from home. So I've got a router that has both 4G SIMs in it and my point-to-point Wi-Fi, the rural Wi-Fi stuff they have. So mine fails over and I'm not that limited. And when I was saying bandwidth, I was really talking about internal to the network. Yeah. So like, yeah. Unless you're remote and you're trying to access all your cameras and
if you're trying to stream 20 cameras off of one internet service, that's different than if you're routing it in.
Yeah, and getting the notifications remotely and then doing your couple of actions.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Mr.
how
Roy.
do you store your data, particularly for cameras, and determine how much data can you store? 2 days worth, a month's worth, etc. And how do I know how much I need to store based on how many cameras and all that good stuff?
That's one of Jack's favorite answers. It depends. Almost all of the cameras have built-in capacity for an SD card, so they can hold that data local to the device. If I'm going to be setting up this NVR system, so I'm going to plan on a certain amount of. Almost all of the different camera systems have a cleanup function to them, right? So if you exceed X amount of time or your space is running out, start pruning some of the stuff out of it. So there's a lot of options that you have to plan for, but there's mechanisms for all of that.
Any other questions from online? Okay, you need to be
Yeah,
there, but I'm asking online. Anything? No? Okay, great.
Roy, for the camera piece, it can get really involved because one of the best things to do is to be able to record 24/7.
Yes.
But roll through all that video footage, or is there some type of AI that's going to be giving me really good notifications of when an event happens that I should go take a look at? And that's kind of the pinnacle of where you want to be, is enough storage to do 24/7 recording on what you have, and then something that filters it out and says, this is where you should look. This is the timestamp you should look. Because if you just do motion activated, especially if you're doing outdoors and infrared or whatever, all kinds of things, leaves, branches, it's very frustrating. So,
which is where I'm going with that NVR piece to tell me, okay, do your 20 or alert me when you see a person, specifically, because you can get motion alerts. My wife gets angry because the email fills up. She's like, there's 75 motion alerts. Well, the tree happened to grow another inch, and it's in the zone that activates motion. You know, so that's where I'm going with having that facial. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite one I caught was a bird landed. It was like, what's this? And was pecking it.
We had one where there's a lightning strike. It was a beautiful shot of the stroke of lightning coming down. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was wondering earlier about the difference between price on our specific ones and the Raspberry Pi, plus the accessories that also come on the automation board, like the extra radios.
Right. Yeah.
And how many USB ports are you going to need for those extra accessories to plug into the Pi?
So and those are all moving targets, right? I think the Home Assistant Yellow was in the 260 range, but it's got the like you said, the radios and stuff built into it. There's a bunch of different options you can get with it too, but it will also accept a M2 style SSD. So whereas the regular Raspberry Pi doesn't have that, right? So it's a lot better. It's USB. I don't find myself using too much. In this case, I've got the smart speaker on it, but other than that, I'm not doing a lot with the USB on the Raspberry Pi, right? I mean, everything is kind of based on network devices really, and not so much on that local USB access. Does that make sense?
It's probably a good idea to plug the self-hosted GitHub repo. You remember? Okay, it's some.
Oh, for the Home Assistant Yellow.
No, there's one that's really common for
GitHub now.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called. Because some people ain't kicked off of GitHub, not for stuff like this. People that are doing stuff that the
Edge.
government really hates.
Edge stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starts with a G also.
Okay.
Is there so I have Arlo at home. Arlo, so it does the uploading of the video footage so I can do it from anywhere. Is there some sort of syncing type program like for OneDrive or Dropbox where I can pull the data from the device?
Yeah, there's a bunch of options that way.
So someone will just grab your Raspberry Pi and leave, and all your camera footage is gone.
Right. Well, but it is also on many of the cameras too. But they're built to send it out to the cloud, right? Whereas I'm to keep it local, so I'm keeping it on the camera, but I'm also ingesting it through the NVR software. So yeah, you can use remote storage, and in that function, you can say send it to this one and then archive it after a certain amount of time to my other slow storage. Thank you.
Thank you. Jazz hands for Tim. Is anybody else like, whoa, I can do all that?
I want to do all that.
The first time I saw an automation presentation, I was very resistant to the privacy issue, but man, help you out with some things.
Yeah.
I just smile every time.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to be back at 4:15 ish.